I actually did go to the Paralympic Games, and it was a long time ago now. As I was getting ready for this, I realized it was 20 years ago that I went to the Paralympic Games. And it was a pretty unlikely thing for me to think about as a kid growing up, of me actually going to the Paralympics. Because I had my leg amputated when I was a kid, when I was 7 years old. And growing up as a kid with a disability, I didn't actually at first know about the Paralympic Games. And I didn't really know that I could be an elite athlete. You know, my brother always had dreams of being in the major leagues or playing in the NFL, but I didn't have dreams like that because the people on TV didn't look like me. So I didn't really know about that. But once I did find out about the Paralympic Games, it changed my life. And I loved the fact that the idea of Olympism is all-inclusive. It includes both athletes with and without disabilities. So we have our own games, these Paralympic Games, and I started training for those when I was 11 years old. And by the time I was 17, I made it to the Paralympic Games. And I was so proud to be part of that race. But unlike many of our speakers today, although I was the world record holder going into that competition, I came home empty-handed. I came home without a medal. And I was pretty devastated. I was pretty disappointed. And it was, I could relate a lot to what Jason talked about before, you know. And I did what many people do when we hit failure. When I came home empty-handed without a medal, I thought, forget this. I'm done with sports. What's the point in doing all that work? I don't want to run ever again. I'm over it. And so I quit. I gave up. I stopped running altogether. Until one day I met this man, a guy named Jim McLaren. And Jim McLaren and I used to get our legs made at the same place. We get our legs made we got our legs made in Queens. And we were sitting in the waiting room, waiting for our legs to get fixed up. And Jim showed me this video. And he had done the Hawaii Ironman. Jim had lost his leg he was riding a motorcycle in New York City. He had just graduated from Yale University and was riding his motorcycle in New York City, and a New York City bus ran a red light and crashed into him, and he survived the accident but walked away with a missing limb. He rebounded from that accident pretty quickly and went on to do the Hawaii Ironman on a prosthetic leg in 10 hours and 42 minutes. Now, do you guys know what the Ironman Triathlon is? Okay, good. Well, for those of you who may think I'm talking about the comic book, I will let you know that I'm actually talking about the Ironman Triathlon, which is, of course, includes 3 sports in one day. It includes a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike, and a 26.2-mile run. And I thought, Jim, you are crazy. But I want to be like Jim. And I want to do an Ironman. And the fact that he could do that he did an Ironman on a prosthetic leg, I thought, well, if he could do it, I can do it too. And then he also told me that no woman had done it yet. So that became my goal. And that became my mission. And I started to train for the Hawaii Ironman. Well, another failure. The race did not go as I planned. And in many ways, I'm grateful that I had a terrible day at the Olympics, because I think it prepared me for this very moment that occurred all these years later, not finishing an Ironman, my second attempt at another big athletic event, and I failed at this one. But this time, I didn't quit. I was pretty devastated, but I came home from Hawaii totally embarrassed. You know, it's such a long race, they actually don't air it live. So I had to come home and tell everybody, yeah, I DNF'd. I didn't finish the race. And it was pretty heartbreaking. The only thing that helped soften the blow was that this was in my mailbox when I got home. I made it to the cover of Runner's World. And it was pretty amazing to be recognized as an athlete. on the cover of one of the greatest running magazines that we have in the United States. And so I hung this photo up on my fridge. And that was my motivation. I said, look at you, Sarah. Look how fit you are. You've got a good foundation. It's time for you to dust yourself off, pick yourself up, and get back in the game. I want you to go back to the Hawaii Ironman. And so that's what I did. In many ways, I really think that I chose to do the Hawaii Ironman because it was my way of kind of recapturing the Olympic spirit in my life. Triathlon is now in the Olympic Games. It was added to the Olympic program in the year 2000. Seems like a natural fit, right? We have swimming, biking, and running. We have all those sports in the Olympic Games. So it seemed natural that they would add the triathlon to the Olympics, and they did that in the year 2000. They did add triathlon. It will be in the Paralympics in 2016. But that's a shorter distance triathlon. I still had my eye on the Ironman. I didn't just want to do any tri. I wanted to do the Ironman. And so in many ways, as I said earlier, I chose that race because it was my way of, capturing that Olympic spirit in my life. You know, as Karen said, the Olympics happen every day. And so I started to train for my own little Olympics, the Hawaii Ironman. And so after the disappointment of the finish, when you fall down and you miss your mark, that's when we have the chance to learn our greatest lessons. And so I figured I've got to change my game plan. It didn't work out the year before, so I need to change my strategy. I got a different coach. I got a swim coach. I got a tri coach. I joined a different swimming program. And so I started swimming with a different group. I started swimming with a lot faster people. And by chasing their feet, I got better. So I started working out in the pool. The next thing I changed was my bike. I was pretty lucky that I worked with a company called Cannondale. And they actually built me a custom bike. They said, Sarah, we're going to help you in any way that we can. We want to get you the right equipment. So they redesigned my bicycle. And then, of course, there was the run. So after learning all these, changing my game plan and working harder on my swim and working harder on my bike and then working harder on my run, I went back for what I like to call my Ironman 2.0, the updated software for the next race. And so I was pretty proud to go back to Hawaii the following year.